The film opens with the wonderful views of Mars. Once inhabited by robots, in the near future they will become a refuge for the first researchers of the Earth. They have already landed and organized a temporary camp in the vastness of the Acidalian Plain, where they carry out scientific research with great force. This mission is proudly named ARES-3. The main character, Mark Watney, collects samples of soil for analysis, along with his colleagues on duty for the difficult case of alien intervention. Suddenly, the base receives updated weather reports. A powerful storm is approaching them. Its gusts are quite capable of demolishing the takeoff and landing module, which is not possible to return to orbit, and from there home becomes an extremely problematic. The commander gives the order to prepare for takeoff. Under the gusts of wind, with a finely chopped stone, the crew goes from the base to the module. On the way, Watney knocked out by the broken antenna. He loses consciousness, and the damaged spacesuit stops sending signals. It is impossible to find him, and the astronauts leave the body on another planet. On Earth, NASA reports at a press conference that the ARES-3 mission is returning home, and Mark Watney is dead. However, rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. The astronaut comes to his senses, sprinkled with Martian sand. Oxygen in the spacesuit runs out, so he urgently has to run to the base. The case is complicated by an injury, a metal pin stuck in his stomach, and the frozen blood clogged a hole in the spacesuit. He manages to get to the base and provide first aid. Having treated the wound, he realizes the scale of the tragedy. He is alone on another planet. In the desolation of the descendants, Mark leads the board of the magazine, not having the opportunity to convey a message to Earth. The situation is extremely unenviable. He takes into account the remaining products to understand how many days he will have enough food. There will be enough supplies for a maximum of a year, so you need to start a garden to grow food for another 3 years. This will be helped by biological waste from the toilet and a supply of potatoes for Thanksgiving. Mark arranges a mini garden in one compartment of the residential module, fills the space with polyethylene, brings soil from local sand, and generously fertilizes it with pressed feces from the toilet. He plants the cut potatoes in the fertile soil, watering the vegetables with water. Then the next problem arises: a deficit of water. To get more liquid, Mark uses his knowledge of chemistry and tries to transfer the unnecessary remains of rocket fuel into water. Unfortunately, the first attempt is overturned by an explosion due to a small error in calculations. But taking into account the corrections, everything works out. Water begins to condense in the fenced area, irrigating the garden. After a while, Mark's work bears fruit. The first fragile green sprout comes first. NASA employees are preparing for the next mission to Mars. But in order to find out what survived from ARES-3 after the storm, satellites are needed, which are not given access, including on moral and ethical grounds. The management does not want Mark's photo of the body to make a bad ad for the company. However, the program manager still manages to convince the management. This leads to shocking results. According to the satellite photo, the survivor remained at the ARES-3 base, but it is simply impossible to take and save him. Mark, inspired by the fact that he alone raised the agricultural economy of Mars, begins to plan how to get off the red planet. The next mission of NASA ARES-4 should land at 3,200 km from its current location, and it is best for him to be there when they fly home. To do this, you need to figure out how to overcome this distance. Given the speed of the rover, it will take 50 days to get to the road, and all this time will have to live inside the transport. To increase the capacity of the batteries, Mark decided to dig out a radioactive thermogenerator, which will save on heating. But if it is damaged, the radiation will kill the astronaut faster than hunger and cold. NASA celebrates his trip on the rover and comes to the conclusion that he is moving to the future landing site of ARES-4. To provide strong support, it was decided to send a cargo ship with humanitarian aid to him. It will take half a year to do everything. A month and a half later, Mark collects potato crop, but no food supplies will help him survive if there is no connection with Earth. Watney does not know that a mission to save him is already being prepared there. He goes to the Mars rover, which in 1997 became the first researcher of Mars. Watney digs out the device from the sand and brings it to the base, where he tries to launch a new one. He succeeds. On Earth, they receive a signal from a device that has been turned off for several decades. Mark manages to send a message to NASA, from where the answer comes. On Earth, he knows that he is alive, but communication is limited by the rotation of the Mars rover's camera. NASA can only answer yes or no to questions. Even on a spiritual board, there are more options. Watney makes a circle around the device with segments. Each sector is responsible for its own sign. This is a 16-river system. Thanks to it, it is possible to establish a two-way communication system. NASA sends an instruction on how to configure the Mars rover for text communication. During the messaging, Mark learns that the crew of Ares-3 is not yet aware that he is alive. He sends a set of rude messages that immediately spread all over the world, since the broadcast of the message is conducted live. This encourages NASA to inform the crew of the news. Watney makes another entry in the magazine, reporting that if someone managed to grow a crop in a new place, it is officially considered colonization. Once, due to the wear and tear of the materials, the wall of the transition gateway was lost. There is an explosive de-sealing, which leads to the destruction of the potato farm, as well as damages Mark's spacesuit. The latter is managed to cope thanks to Scotch tape. Then you have to fill a hole in the residential module and re-inventory the remaining potatoes. The incident puts an end to the entire carefully planned rescue operation. Without a crop, Mark will not last long enough to meet Ares-4. Therefore, NASA has to speed up the preparation for the launch of the ship with supplies. To do this, they train a specialist in astrodynamics with the face of a graduate of the Greendale Public College, as well as cancel pre-flight tests. The hurry leads to deplorable results. The provision zone will soon explode after the launch. Our Chinese brothers know about this. They have a ready-made secret carrier capable of reaching the orbit of Mars. The Chinese offer help to NASA, despite the fact that this deprives them of their missiles, and will put an end to the research program on Mars in the near future. At the same time, the astrodynamicist ends calculations on the supercomputer. He has a better rescue plan. At the meeting, the astrodynamicist clearly shows how to return the Hermes, the ship of the Ares-3 mission, back to Mars. Instead of landing, the ship will fly around the Earth in orbit, accelerate due to its gravity, grab equipment from the Chinese carrier along the way, and return to Mark Watney, who uses the takeoff module and connects with Hermes. However, this will extend the Ares-3 mission for another year and a half. And during this time, if something goes wrong, the crew can easily die. The head of NASA reasonably decides that risking 5 lives for the sake of saving one is mathematically unprofitable and orders to stick to the previous plan with the shipment of supplies. NASA scientists secretly send the Hermes crew the idea of astrodynamics with all calculations. Having consulted, they make a unanimous decision to go back to Mars for Mark, which is reported to the Flight Control Center, having previously hacked the ship's computers so that the management would not intercept. During this time, Mark himself must figure out how to get to the Ares-4 takeoff module, which had previously brought materials for future expeditions. Together with China, NASA sends a rocket carrier with supplies into space. Hermes intercepts the module in Earth orbit, after which the Ares-3 mission falls into reverse course to pick up the Mars colonizer. 7 months later, Mark goes to acquire the Ares-4 module. He leaves an autograph on the wall of the residential module, loads the Mars rover, puts on a spacesuit, and leaves the temporary house, not forgetting to lock the door. The path lies through the lifeless scarlet sands of the Martian deserts. On his first trip to Mars, he has to not only act as a pioneer, but also recharge the Mars rover's battery through solar batteries. At this time, at NASA, despite all the calculations of the most ingenious minds, they find a new problem. Hermes cannot enter the orbit of Mars, since in this case there will not be enough fuel to return home. On the other hand, the Ares-4 takeoff module will not be able to climb above the lower orbit, only if it is not lightened by 5 tons. Mark, of course, is not very enthusiastic about the idea of flying, not in a full-fledged module, but there is no choice. While waiting for an interplanetary taxi, Mark starts to lighten the capsules, shoots off the excess hatches, screws off unnecessary parts, and throws out the ammunition. On board Hermes, the captain explains the task. Watney takes off into orbit, the engines turn off, then he drifts. At this time, the ship calculates the point of intersection of the courses, corrects the movement, and arcs the module with cables. On the planet, Mark says goodbye to the Mars rover and prepares for the start. The inhabitants of the Earth conduct a live report on the return. Hundreds of people right on the street watch the unique evacuation. Before the start, Mark, exhausted, is unable to hold back his tears. He thanks the Ares-3 crew for coming back for him. The captain gives a countdown, and the takeoff module, controlled remotely by the pilot from Hermes, takes off. Watney loses consciousness from the overload. Another unforeseen situation arises. The distance from the module to the ship is too long. Mark fails to intercept. There are 40 minutes left to find a solution. Hermes burns fuel to fly closer, but there is still a problem of too high a speed for interception. There is no way to compare speeds. Mark comes to his senses and gets in touch. He has an idea. Stab the glove of the spacesuit and fly like an Iron Man in zero gravity on a jet stream of outgoing air. This is dangerous, because the interception will have to be done at random, but there is no alternative. The captain disconnects the connection with the ground for a while to discuss a new idea. They will blow up the Hermes gateway to let out the air, thus slowing down the movement, and compare it with the module. But even with the ideal flow of circumstances, the distance will be too long. No cable will be enough. The explosion and ejection of air will slightly slow down the ship. The captain leaves with the jet ram into outer space and moves to the module as close as the cable is enough. Passing by, Mark pierces the glove of the spacesuit. The jet stream of outgoing air is enough for him to fly up to the chatty captain. They hold hands, but the force of inertia carries the Martian further. He barely manages to cling to the safety cable. Hermes reports this to Earth, where crowds of people rejoice. In the next scene, Mark Watney sits on a bench on Earth and drinks coffee. He notices a tiny green sprout pierced through the pebble. This is the quintessence of the craving for life. NASA cadets pass by. They greet him politely. This is a candidate selection course for astronauts, and he gives lectures on survival in difficult conditions. After all, he has the richest experience in this matter. That's all. Share your impressions in the comments and subscribe to the channel. All the best.